The whiskey bottle shattered against the oak mantel, shards exploding like the fragments of my crumbling marriage. Alexander didn't flinch. He just stood there in the flickering firelight, his broad shoulders tense under that faded flannel shirt, eyes locked on mine with an intensity that made my stomach twist. "You think you can just walk away from this family, Joshua? From me?" His voice was a low rumble, laced with something raw and unspoken, pulling me into the storm I'd been running from for years. I gripped the edge of the armchair, knuckles white, the room spinning from too many shots and not enough truths. Emily, my wife, his daughter, had left for that conference in Chicago 2 days ago, oblivious to the powder keg she'd ignited by asking me to keep Dad company. Now, here we were, two strangers bound by vows and blood, unraveling in the heart of his sprawling farmhouse outside Des Moines, Iowa. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows of this old Victorian we'd called a second home for 5 years, but tonight it felt like a prison. Alexander crossed the room in 3 strides, his work boots thudding softly on the Persian rug his late wife had picked out decades ago. He stopped inches from me, close enough that I could smell the faint cedar of his cologne mixed with the sharp tang of bourbon on his breath. "Tell me," he demanded, his hand hovering near my shoulder, not touching, but the heat of it burned anyway. "Why do you look at me like that, like you're seeing a ghost? Or a monster?" I swallowed hard, my throat dry as the Iowa plains in July. 5 years of pretending, of smiling through Emily's family barbecues, of nodding along to Alexander's stories about his days as a high school football coach, had led to this. The lies I'd buried deep, the ones that whispered in the dark when Emily slept beside me, they were clawing their way out now. "Because you see me," I admitted, the words tumbling free like a confession in a confessional booth. "In a way she never has," he exhaled sharply, sinking onto the ottoman across from me, his calloused hands rubbing over his face as if to erase the lines etched there by regret. The fire popped, sending sparks dancing up the chimney, and for a moment, the only sound was our breathing, ragged, synchronized, like we'd been holding it in sync for years without knowing. Alexander lowered his hands, revealing eyes the color of storm clouds, flecked with gold I'd never noticed before. "Joshua, something that's been eating me alive since the day you walked into our lives." My heart hammered against my ribs, a drumbeat urging me to bolt, but my feet were rooted. This was Alexander Hale, the man who'd built this house with his bare hands after coming back from Vietnam, the widower who'd raised Emily alone after cancer stole his wife too soon, the pillar of our small-town community who volunteered at the food bank every Sunday. Unbreakable, untouchable. And yet, here he was, cracking open like the bottle on the floor. "It started back in Nam," he began, voice steady but eyes distant, staring into the flames as if they held the reel of his life. "I was 22, fresh out of boot camp, shipped off to a jungle that swallowed men whole. My bunkmate was a kid from Boston named Tommy, sharp as a tack, with this laugh that cut through the gunfire like sunlight. We were inseparable. Shared smokes, rations, secrets. One night, we crossed a line. Just once. His hands on me, mine on him. It was survival, or so I told myself. But it was more. It was real. I leaned forward, elbows on knees, the air between us thickening with the weight of his words. I'd never heard him speak of the war like this. Not the sanitized versions he'd spun for Emily at Thanksgiving dinners, all heroism and brotherhood. This was raw, stripped bare, and it mirrored the ache I'd carried since college. when I'd kissed a roommate in a dorm haze and spent the next decade pretending it was a fluke. After Tommy died, shrapnel, quick and ugly, I buried it all, Alexander continued, his voice dropping to a whisper. Came home, married Sarah because that's what you did. Built this life. But every time I looked at you, Joshua, God help me, it stirred up the ghost of him. Of what I could have been. The admission hung there, electric, and before I could process it, he reached out, fingers brushing my knee, tentative as a question. I didn't pull away. Instead, I covered his hand with mine, the warmth of his skin sending a jolt straight to my core. It was wrong, every societal rule, every family tie screamed it, but in that touch, I felt seen. Truly seen, for the first time since I'd slipped that ring on Emily's finger to silence the doubts. We sat like that for what felt like hours, the fire dying to embers, the storm outside lashing the house in sheets of rain. A silent Morse code of longing we'd both denied. What now? I murmured, my voice hoarse. He looked up, a sad smile tugging at his lips. And tomorrow, we figure out how to live with the truth. But truth has a way of demanding more than whispers in the dark. By morning, as the sun pierced the clouds over the cornfields, Emily called. Her voice was bright, excited about some panel she'd crushed, but mine cracked when I said goodbye. Alexander watched from the kitchen window, coffee mug in hand, his expression unreadable. That strangeness I'd sensed the first night, the lingering glances during family dinners, the way he'd brush past me in the hallway a beat too long. It wasn't imagination. It was the prelude to this unraveling. Little did I know, the real event was just beginning to brew. The days blurred into a tense rhythm after that night. The farmhouse a cocoon of unspoken tension where every creak of the floorboards felt like an accusation. Emily's conference stretched to a week, some last-minute extension for networking, leaving me stranded in this limbo with Alexander. I told myself I'd drive back to our apartment in Des Moines, but the keys stayed on the hook by the door, mocking my cowardice. Part of me craved the escape. The rest, the dangerous pull of his presence, kept me rooted. Alexander threw himself into routine like a man possessed. Mornings started at dawn with him in the barn, tending to the horses he'd kept as a hobby since Sarah's death, remnants of the life she'd dreamed for them. I'd watch from the kitchen window, nursing black coffee, mesmerized by the flex of his forearms as he brushed down Old Thunder, the gray mare with a temperament as stormy as her owner. There was a poetry to it, this man in his element. Salt and pepper hair tousled by the wind, flannel sleeves rolled up to reveal faded tattoos from his army days. A eagle on one bicep, Semper Fi, inked crookedly on the other, a Marine's defiance. By noon, he'd trudge in, mud-caked boots left on the porch, and we'd share lunch at the scarred pine table. Thick sandwiches of roast beef from the local butcher, potato salad heavy with mayo and secrets. Conversation skirted the edges of that night. Weather reports on the impending harvest. Emily's latest texts about her killer keynote. But his eyes betrayed him, flicking to my mouth when I laughed, lingering on the curve of my neck when I stretched. And God, I felt it too, the magnetic draw, like gravity had tilted just for us. One afternoon, as thunderheads gathered on the horizon, he caught me in the attic rummaging through boxes of Emily's childhood relics. Dust motes danced in the slanted light filtering through the gable window, and I held a faded Polaroid, young Alexander, arms slung around Sarah at a county fair, both grinning like the world was theirs. But behind them, half cut off the frame, was another man, tall, dark-haired, with a hand on Alexander's shoulder that lingered too possessively. "Tommy," Alexander said from the ladder, his voice a gravelly echo. I startled, the photo slipping from my fingers. He climbed up, joints protesting with soft pops, and retrieved it, tracing the edge with a reverence that twisted something in my chest. "We wrote letters after the war. He came to visit once, right after Sarah and I got engaged. Thought it was closure. Turns out, it was just the start of the lies." He sank onto a trunk, the photo clutched like a talisman, and I joined him, our knees brushing in the cramped space. The air up here was thick with the scent of aged paper and mothballs, a time capsule of regrets. "What happened to him?" I asked, though I dreaded the answer. Alexander's jaw tightened. "AIDS. 85. Back when it was a death sentence and a scarlet letter. I sent money anonymously, visited once in that godforsaken hospital in Boston. Tubes everywhere, his body wasted to bones. He made me promise to live, Joshua, to not let the fear win. But I did. Buried myself in this house, in fatherhood, in pretending." His vulnerability cracked me open, and before I could stop myself, I leaned in, cupping his face, rough stubble against my palm, eyes searching mine for permission. He didn't pull away. Our lips met tentatively, a brush of salt and sorrow, then deepened with the hunger of years denied. His hands fisted in my shirt, pulling me closer, and the attic spun, a whirlwind of heat and heartache. It was messy, urgent, teeth clashing, breaths mingling, the taste of coffee and unspoken love. We broke apart gasping, foreheads pressed together, the Polaroid forgotten on the floor. "This can't happen," I whispered, even as my body screamed otherwise. Emily's face flashed in my mind, her trusting smile, the way she'd planned our future with blueprints and baby names. Alexander's thumb grazed my lip, gentle as a vow. "It already has. Question is, what do we do with it?" That evening, we avoided each other, me tinkering with the old Ford in the garage, him chopping wood until his shirt clung damp to his back. Dinner was silent, save for the clink of forks on plates, the radio murmuring classic rock from Des Moines. But as night fell, the storm broke, lightning forking across the sky like veins of fire, and I found myself at his bedroom door, rain drumming a frantic tattoo on the roof. He was shirtless, scars from shrapnel mapping his chest like a roadmap of survival, sitting on the edge of the bed with a tumbler of scotch. "Joshua," he said, not surprised, voice thick. I crossed the threshold, the door clicking shut behind me like fate sealing an envelope. We didn't speak. Didn't need to. Clothes shed in a trail to the bed, my jeans pooling at my ankles, his hands steady as they unbuttoned my shirt. It was slow then, reverent, exploring freckles and folds, whispers of beautiful against collarbones, the arch of backs under calloused palms. He moved with the assurance of a man who'd waited lifetimes, drawing gasps from me that echoed off the rafters. In his arms, I wasn't the husband faking it, the son-in-law playing house. I was Joshua, whole and wanted. Afterward, tangled in sheets that smelled of him, earth and aftershave, we lay staring at the ceiling fan's lazy spin. "Emily comes home in 2 days," I said, the words a guillotine. He turned, propping on an elbow, silver strands catching the moonlight. "Then we tell her. Together. No more hiding." Optimism born of release, but dawn brought doubt. Emily's call that morning was effusive, Miss you both. Bringing pie from that bakery you love. Dad. Her cheer was a knife twist, and as I hung up, Alexander's face hardened. There's more you should know, he said, voice edged with steel. About why I really asked you to stay. He led me to his study, a sanctum of leather-bound books and war memorabilia, pulling a locked drawer with a key from his chain. Inside, letters, yellowed and tied with twine, addressed to him in a feminine script. Sarah knew, he confessed, unfolding one. About Tommy. About me. She married me anyway, loved me enough to share the burden. But she made me promise, protect Emily from it. From the world's ugliness. The words blurred as I scanned them. Sarah's elegant cursive pleading for honesty, for a life half-lived but true. Betrayal bloomed, not at him, but at the web of silences we'd all spun. And now, I asked. Now, the event happens tomorrow. The family reunion at the lake house. Emily insisted we all go. It's time the secrets breathe. I nodded, dread coiling in my gut. The lake house, Eagle Lake, with its pine-shrouded shores and dock where Emily and I had honeymooned. A place of lazy summers and lies. Little did I know, the real storm was the one we'd unleash there. The drive to Eagle Lake was a study in fractured normalcy. Emily wedged between us in the pickup's cab, her laughter a brittle bridge over the chasm. She'd arrived home buoyant, pie in hand, oblivious to the charged air that crackled whenever Alexander and I brushed elbows in the kitchen. You two look like you bonded, she teased, planting kisses on our cheeks. And we'd murmured agreements, guilt gnawing at my marrow like termites in old wood. The lake house loomed on the water's edge, a cedar-shingled relic from the 50s, its wraparound porch sagging under the weight of nostalgia. Family poured in by midday, Aunt Clara with her Jell-O salads, cousins towing screaming kids, Uncle Ray firing up the grill with stories of his glory days in the mill. The air hummed with sizzle of burgers and the slap of screen doors, the Iowa sun glinting off the water like shattered glass. It was Americana distilled. Red, white, and blue banners fluttering for the upcoming 4th, coolers sweating condensation, laughter masking the undercurrents. Alexander manned the grill, spatula in hand, his easy banter with the relatives a mask I'd once mistaken for authenticity. I watched from the picnic table, nursing a beer, Emily's head on my shoulder as she chatted with her cousin about nursery paint swatches. We're trying for a baby, you know, she confided earlier, her eyes sparkling with hope that curdled my stomach. I'd forced a smile, mumbled about perfect timing, but inside, the attic kiss replayed on loop, Alexander's mouth claiming mine, a promise of truths I couldn't unlearn. As afternoon waned, the kids cannonballed into the lake, shrieks piercing the lazy haze. Emily tugged me toward the dock, her sundress billowing, but I demurred. Go ahead. I'll catch up. She pouted playfully, then dove in, surfacing with a whoop. Alone, I wandered the shore, pebbles crunching underfoot, the water lapping like whispers of warning. Alexander found me there, 2 fresh beers dangling from his fingers. Truce? He offered, extending one, his free hand shading his eyes against the glare. Close, the lines around his mouth deepened, worry etching them fresh. I took the bottle, our fingers lingering. This place is loaded, isn't it? The dock creaked in the breeze, evoking memories of Emily and me tangled under blankets here, her touch familiar but never igniting the fire Alexander had kindled. He nodded, gaze distant on the horizon. Sarah and I bought it on a whim, our escape from the farm's grind. Tommy visited once, that summer after the war. We swam here at midnight, drunk on freedom and cheap wine. He called it our confessional. Little did I know. A shout from the house cut him short, Clara calling for salads. He squeezed my shoulder, a fleeting anchor, before heading back. I lingered, the confession stirring envy for a man long gone, a life unlived. By dusk, the reunion swelled, bonfire crackling on the beach, marshmallows toasting golden, guitars strumming folk tunes under a canopy of stars. Emily pulled me into a slow dance, her body soft against mine, but my mind wandered to Alexander across the flames, his silhouette haloed in firelight, laughing at Ray's jokes with a freedom I craved. That's when the conflict ignited, not with a bang, but a flicker. One of Emily's cousins, buzzed on IPAs, slung an arm around Alexander. "Hey, Uncle Alex, remember that time in Nam you wrote about in your letters? The one with that special buddy?" The group chuckled, assuming it a bromance tale, but Alexander froze, beer midway to his lips. "Letters," Emily echoed, tilting her head. "You never showed me those, Dad." The fire popped ominously, and Ray, ever the instigator, clapped Alexander's back. "Yeah, the ones to Aunt Sarah, full of war stories and that Tommy fella. My heart's anchor, you called him." Poetic stuff, color drained from Alexander's face, and I felt it, the dominoes toppling. Emily glanced at me, brow furrowed, then back to her father. "Dad? What's he talking about?" He set his beer down deliberately, the group falling silent as if sensing the shift. "Emily, there's something your mother and I kept from you. For your sake." His voice carried over the waves, steady but laced with the tremor I'd heard in the attic. She stepped forward, arms crossing. "Kept from me? After Mom died, you said no more secrets. That we were a team." The betrayal in her tone sliced me. I knew that wound, had inflicted my own version on her with every feigned affection. Alexander raked a hand through his hair. It wasn't about distrust. It was protection. Tommy was more than a friend. In the war, we loved each other deeply. When I came home, I chose this life with your mom, with you because the world wasn't ready. Isn't ready for some. Murmurs rippled through the relatives. Shock, discomfort, a few averted eyes. Clara gasped, hand to her pearls. Ray muttered something about, "Damn queers in the trenches." Emily's face crumpled, not in anger, but devastation. "You loved a man, and you let me marry Joshua, build this life, without telling me who you really are." Her words landed like shrapnel, and she turned to me, eyes searching. "Did you know? Is that why you've been so distant lately? Pulling away, canceling dates." Panic surged, hot and choking. It's not." But the lie stuck, and in that hesitation, she saw it all. "You did know." Her voice broke, tears spilling. "Oh God, Joshua. Are you?" The group dissolved into awkward exodus. Cousins herding kids to cars, Clara hissing about family disgrace. Alexander reached for Emily, but she recoiled. "Don't. Just don't." She fled to the house, door slamming like the whiskey bottle nights ago. I followed, heart pounding, finding her in the guest room, suitcase yanking open. "Emily, wait. It's more complicated." "Complicated," she whirled, mascara streaking. "My father's gay was gay, and hid it from me my whole life. And you, my husband, knew and said nothing while we've been trying for kids, planning forever. Sobs racked her, and guilt crashed over me like the lake's waves. It's not just that, I blurted. The dam breaking. I'm gay too. Or by hell, I don't know. But I love you, in my way. I fell for him. For your dad. The room spun into silence, her eyes widening in horror. Get out, she whispered. Both of you. This family's over. Alexander appeared in the doorway, face ashen. Emily, please. Let me explain. Explain what? That you seduced my husband? That everything was a lie. She shoved past us, grabbing keys, storming into the night. We stood there, the house emptying of echoes, the fire outside dying to smoke. Betrayal's bitter taste filled my mouth, but beneath it, a fierce clarity. We'd ignited something irreversible. As tires crunched gravel, Emily fleeing to who knows where, Alexander pulled me close on the porch, his embrace a lifeline in the wreckage. We'll fix this, he murmured into my hair. But deep down, I knew the real event, the shattering, was upon us. The fallout hit like a Midwest twister, swift, merciless, leaving nothing upright. Emily vanished into the night, her texts a barrage of fury. How could you? I trusted you both. Don't call. By morning, she'd holed up at Clara's in town. The aunt who'd always whispered about loose morals, now her reluctant harbor. Alexander and I rattled around the lake house like ghosts, the bonfire's ashes cold testament to the blaze we'd set. Relatives scattered with hurried goodbyes. Ray's backslap turned limp. Clara's pie returned uneaten, whispers of scandal rippling through the family grapevine faster than Lake Eagle's gossip. Alexander aged a decade overnight. Hollow cheeks, eyes shadowed as he paced the porch. Phone clutched like a grenade. She won't answer, he'd mutter, redialing, voicemail his only audience. I'd brew coffee strong as regret, slide plates of eggs across the table, but appetite eluded us both. The romance that had bloomed in stolen touches soured under guilt's glare. Our kisses turned desperate, grasping at normalcy in a world upended. On day 3, the high tide of conflict crashed. A knock shattered the noon quiet. Deputy Harlan, Emily's godfather, mustache twitching under his Stetson. Hail, he drawled, tipping his hat but eyeing me like roadkill. Emily filed papers. Restraining order on you, Alex. And a separation for Joshua. Says y'all. Compromised her. Alexander's mug shattered in the sink. Ceramic shards drawing blood he didn't notice. Compromised? Harlan, we've been family 20 years. Tell her. Can't. Son. She's lawyered up with that shark from Ames. Divorce on grounds of infidelity. And the other stuff. His gaze flicked to me, loaded with judgment. Small town's small. Boys. Folks talk. Church picnic tomorrow? Might want to skip it. The door clicked shut, and Alexander slumped against the counter, blood dripping onto the linoleum in rhythmic plips. I grabbed a towel, wrapping his hand, our eyes meeting in shared devastation. This is my fault, he rasped. I should have buried it deeper. For her. No, I countered, fierce, tying the makeshift bandage. It's ours. The lies, the half-truths, we both fed them. But anger simmered. Not at him, but the world that demanded closets over candor. That night, as loons wailed over the water, we made love with an edge, bodies colliding in urgency, nails raking backs, moans muffled against pillows to drown the accusations echoing in our heads. It was cathartic, a reclaiming amid ruin. But dawn brought no solace, only Emily's final text. Lawyer says assets split 50/50ths. House goes to me. You can have the secrets. The climax erupted at the county fairgrounds. Of all places, ironic, given the Polaroid's ghosts. Emily had demanded a neutral meet to sign prelims, her lawyer insisting public ground to avoid drama. The fair buzzed with Ferris wheel creaks and cotton candy haze, families milling under strung bulbs, oblivious to our private apocalypse. Alexander and I arrived in his truck, hands clasped white-knuckled over the gearshift, my stomach churning like the tilt-a-whirl nearby. She waited at a picnic table by the livestock barns, documents spread like a battlefield map, her eyes red-rimmed but chin-high. No lawyer, just her, raw and resolute. Sign, she said, sliding the pen, voice steel despite the quiver. Alexander hesitated, scanning the pages, alimony clauses, asset divisions, a clause barring contact. Honey, this isn't you. We can talk therapy, whatever. I love you. Always have. Love, she laughed, bitter as burnt popcorn. Your love's a poison, Dad. You let me idolize a lie, the straight arrow father, the perfect widower. Then you steal my husband? Joshua, I chose you. Built dreams around us. I swallowed, throat tight. I know. And I'm sorry, God. Sorrier than I can say. But I was drowning in pretense. With you, it was safe, comfortable, but not alive. Alexander, he sees the parts one hid. The man I am, her face twisted, tears spilling. The gay man that you both hid from me? I feel like a fool. Joshua. Like our marriage was a charity case. Alexander reached across, but she jerked back. It wasn't charity, Emily. Your mother's letters, they prove it. She knew, loved me anyway. Taught me grace. I failed you by not passing it on. Letters. Her eyes narrowed. Show me. He fumbled in his jacket, pulling the bundle, twine frayed, paper brittle. She snatched them, devouring Sarah's words under the fair's garish lights. Pleas for honesty, vows of partnership, a love that bent but didn't break. Emily's breath hitched, fingers trembling. Mom. She knew, and stayed. Because love isn't ownership, Alexander said softly. It's witness. She witnessed me, flaws and all. I wanted that for you with Joshua, with life. The pen hovered, the fair's cacophony fading to a hum. Then, the betrayal's apex. A cousin, tipsy, vengeful, stumbled up, phone out. Smile for the gram. Freaks. Family drama outed at the fair. Flash popped, capturing our tableau, tears, papers, pain, and he cackled, posting live to the town group chat. Within seconds, heads turned, whispers, stares, a mother shielding her kid's eyes. Emily surged up, snatching his phone, deleting the post with frantic swipes. Get out, she snarled, hurling it into the dirt. But damage was done. Buzz spread like wildfire, the fair's joy curdling to judgment. She collapsed back, sobs racking. Everyone knows now. Because of you, of us. The us encompassed the fractured trio. And in her grief, I saw our shared wound. Isolation's sting, society's blade. Alexander knelt, heedless of knees on gravel. Then let us fix it. Not by hiding, by standing. Together. She looked between us, anguish warring with something softer. Resignation? Forgiveness? The pen dropped, papers scattering in the breeze. I need time. Away from here. From all of it. She stood, gathering documents, then paused, voice small. But, call me next week. Maybe. As she walked away, swallowed by the crowd, Alexander pulled me up, our embrace fierce amid the chaos. The event had peaked, secrets spilled, bonds severed, but in the rubble, a spark. Not destruction, but dawn. Months unfurled like pages in a well-worn novel, each chapter scarred but turning toward light. Emily's time stretched to seasons. Autumn leaves carpeting Eagle Lake in crimson regret, winter's snow blanketing the farm in hushed absolution. The divorce finalized quietly, contested clauses softened by her lawyer's mercy, assets split not with scalpels but fairness. She kept the apartment in Des Moines, I the truck. The lake house became neutral ground, a tentative truce spot for coffee and careful words. Alexander and I navigated our new reality with the awkward grace of dancers learning steps mid-waltz. The farmhouse, once a symbol of his solitude, bloomed with our presence. My books mingling with his field and streams on shelves, shared suppers of chili simmering on the stove, nights where touch evolved from desperation to devotion. We'd drive the backroads at dusk, his hand on my thigh as Johnny Cash crooned from the radio, talking futures, not grand gestures, but quiet ones. Pride in Des Moines come June, a trip to Boston to trace Tommy's steps. Yet the human cost lingered, a shadow at our heels. Emily's calls came sporadic, first accusatory, then curious, laced with questions about how it feels, really. Free, I'd say, voice cracking. But guilty. For the pain. Alexander joined sometimes, his gruff apologies met with her softening sighs. I miss the dad I thought I knew, she'd admit once, over speakerphone as sleet lashed the windows. But maybe I can know the real one, the humaneness of it all, the mess, the mending unfolded in small acts. Spring brought thaw, daffodils piercing the earth like hopes reborn, and Emily's olive branch, a lunch at the diner on the edge of town. She slid into the booth across from us, hair pulled back, eyes wary but warm. I read Mom's letters again, she started, stirring tea. She wrote about choice, not just yours, Dad, but hers. To love fiercely, even when it hurt. Alexander nodded, throat working. She was braver than me. No, Emily countered, reaching for his hand, first touch in months. You both were. Hiding it. That was fear. Coming out, that's brave. Her gaze shifted to me, tentative smile blooming. I forgive you, Joshua. Not all the way, maybe never fully, but enough to say, I'm happy for you. For this, tears pricked, and we sat there, three souls stitching wounds, the diner's jukebox playing Springsteen's Thunder Road, an anthem of escape and embrace. She didn't stay long, but as she hugged us goodbye in the parking lot, her whisper in my ear, take care of him, sealed a fragile peace. Summer crested with revelations full bloom. The town fair returned, transformed, no longer a minefield, but a milestone. Alexander and I walked hand in hand under the lights, his calloused palm steady in mine, ignoring the stares that had dulled to indifference. Emily met us by the Ferris wheel, a date on her arm, a kind-eyed teacher from her school, nerves evident in his fidget. Meet Nate, she said, beaming. He's proudly. We laughed, the sound genuine, as the wheel lifted us skyward, 4 of us in a gondola, the world shrinking below. From up there, Des Moines sprawled like possibility, cornfields waving gold, river serpents gleaming, a tapestry of lives intertwined. That night, back at the farm, Alexander and I lay in the hammock on the porch, stars wheeling overhead, crickets chorusing approval. His head on my chest, fingers tracing lazy patterns on my skin. "Never thought it'd end like this," he murmured. "Not with love. Not with family intact." I kissed his temple, inhaling the familiar cedar. "It's not an end. It's the real beginning." Emily's wedding came in fall, a small affair at the lake house, pines whispering blessings. She walked the aisle alone, Sarah's locket at her throat, but we flanked her afterward, Alexander giving her away in spirit, me toasting with tears. Nate's vows echoed Tommy's ghost, promises of witness, of wholeness, and as fireworks burst over the water, Emily pulled us aside. "To secrets revealed," she toasted, glasses clinking. "And the loves they uncover. No tidy bows. This life. Scars faded but visible. Doubts occasional visitors." Alexander volunteered at the local LGBTQ center now, sharing war stories reframed with pride. I wrote freelance pieces on hidden histories, my byline a quiet rebellion. Emily thrived, her classroom a haven for out kids, Nate's hand in hers a mirror of our own. In the end, the strangeness that started it all, the lingering looks, the shattered bottle became our origin. A father-in-law's odd behavior birthed not ruin, but redemption. 2 men finding home in each other, a daughter reclaiming her lineage. Human, flawed, achingly romantic, quintessential American grit wrapped in grace. As winter's first snow dusted the farm, we 3 gathered by the fire, stories flowing, laughter thawing old frosts. Alexander's arm around me, Emily's head on his shoulder, the circle complete. Secrets, once chains, now freed us to love without apology.